I want us to dive right in. I am thrilled to be here. I think this is a fantastic, fantastic idea. Thank you for what you're doing, and I want to start with you and start with your mother. She named you Hope, your middle name, and I want to know how that came about and what role that played in your having a huge idea that started small and turned into something monumental.
Well, I mean, I don't want to speak for my mom, but anybody who's met her knows she has enormous self-esteem, and she also has enormous insecurities, right? Because that's human. That's people. And I think because her mother didn't tell her she loved her, my mother wanted to make sure that she told me that she loved me. And that's the rainbows after storms that I mentioned earlier. You cannot have a rainbow without a storm first. That loss creates leaders. And so often good things come out of challenging situations. And I am concerned about these neighborhoods because I came from these neighborhoods. And it might have been where I came from, but it's not who I am. And all of that, I mean, I think that really when you look at people who are fomenting what I call an anger party in this country, it comes from a lack of hope, it comes from fear, it comes from insecurity, it comes from a lack of vision. The Bible says where there is no vision, the people perish. And I think today people they've lost their vision, they've lost their hope, they've lost their way in many ways. They don't believe in some of their leaders, and they're not seeing the results. They're hearing the rhetoric. And I think today we got to connect a PhD with a PhD. And so when I give this speech, if I don't follow this up, again, the new form of hope my mother, I think, inspired in me, if I don't follow that up by saying we're going to open 1,000 Hope Inside locations by 2020, which is my commitment, Hope Inside of bank branches, credit unions, grocery stores, big box retailers, houses of faith, government offices, nonprofits, academic institutions, to raise credit scores, to inspire entrepreneurs, homeowners. The guy who made the suit that I'm wearing, literally, we put in business as an example, $35,000 loan, raises credit score, raises self-esteem. He's now doing $1.2 million a year, 6 employees, raising his children, paying his taxes, started a nonprofit. Imagine if you had 1,000 Ryan Taylor's the guy's name, Ryan Taylor who drove clothing in Detroit. You don't need 1 million of them. You don't need 20,000 of them. Imagine if you had 1,000 of them, right? So we're going to open 1,000 of these Hope Insides. We already have orders for 268 in the last 24 months. We're opening 1 a week. So what you see Crystal doing here is not a microcosm, that is not some little boutique experience. I just got 4 orders last week. Capitalists are seeing GDP being created, and banks are seeing getting out of the no business and back into the yes business because now you have a qualified borrower.
Now, how many of those are you going to open in Detroit?
I want to open 100.
And then after
by
that,
2020.
By 2020.
Yeah.
I want each of you to answer in a single sentence. What do you see when you see Detroit?
Opportunity. Untapped, unleveraged opportunity. Let me say something the mayor can't. A drug dealer is immoral. He or she is unethical. There's a special place in hell reserved for somebody who sells death to their own community. Make sure that is on tape. That said, a successful drug dealer, an oxymoron, a successful drug dealer is not dumb. They understand import, export, finance, marketing, wholesale, retail, customer service, security, territory, and logistics. You're not talking about a dumb kid. You're talking about a misdirected kid with crappy role model, all that stuff that I mentioned on the graph. And so imagine if Steve Jobs wasn't adopted in Silicon Valley, he was adopted in the south side of Detroit or the south side of Chicago. I'm not picking on, I mean, it doesn't matter. If it didn't have the right soil, the world would be different. There's a Steve Jobs on every block in Detroit. And that is not a fallacy or fantasy. That is literally true. So I see untapped, unleveraged, unaccessed potential. And I see in this audience a chance for people to have legacy. Like, there's nobody in this audience, if they're honest with themselves, that doesn't want to have a personal legacy. Is that true? You want to know you're doing more than just getting up in the morning and paying your bills and doing your thing. You want to know that you want the world to know you were here. Here's an opportunity, right? To do your business in the way you do business and still do well and do good and to leave a legacy of a world that was better because you were
That's right.
here.
Crystal, in a sentence, what do you see when you see Detroit?
I see hope. I see hope for the future. I see a brighter future.
Okay.
One sentence.
But she also sees, she told me backstage, she says she sees on average a 550 credit score. Is that right?
I do. That is what I do see. We do have a
Just being practical.
lower credit score rate than most cities in our state and most cities in the country for that matter. But it is hopeful. It's hopeful. I work with these people every day. I work with the people in the city. I work with people who have 2 jobs, 3 jobs, no jobs, people coming from the UAW, the AFL-CIO, teachers, everyone. People just like you and I go to work every day who need help to raise those credit scores.
But so you've had a 550 credit score. What is one example, just she said a snapshot of a credit score you got to go up in 8 to 10 months? From 550
There's
to what?
a great question.
Okay, so I had one client who went from around 550 or 560 to 642 in 3 weeks.
That's awesome. What did they do?
Well, I am what people may refer to as a dork or nerd, right? Okay, I'm just gonna say it. And so what I do is I study consumer law off top. When people don't pay their bills and their credit scores go down, it's not because we don't want to pay our bills. Like the chairman said, we don't wake up every morning and say, I just want to be stupid. I just don't want to pay bills. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to comb my daughter's hair. I don't want to mow the lawn. We really have good intentions, but if you don't have the money to pay those bills, then that score goes down. So if you're coming to me and you've lost your job or the breadwinner in your home has passed away, the last thing I'm going to worry about for you is money because you're already worried about that. Back to me studying consumer law. I try to find ways within the law to help you relieve some of your debt first. That's the first thing I do. We're not going to talk about money. I'm not going to put that on your shoulders. We're going to find a way out of this. After that, we get to settling, disputing, going downward. Can we do a payment plan? Things like that.
Actually, Crystal, she's a real thinker, and she's one of my best financial coaches in the country, by the way, which is why she's out here. But actually, she gave you a more thoughtful answer than I would have.
Thank you, Crystal.
we're moving credit scores 120 points in 24 months, just so to be clear. But we move 40 points immediately, 90% of the time, because there are errors. If you have a 500 credit score, you don't check your credit. The very nature of somebody who has a 500 credit score is you don't check your credit, because if you check your credit, you would not have a 500 credit score. So when you don't check your credit, there are errors. We dispute the error on your behalf. That immediately pops your credit 40 points. And then after that, as Crystal said, there's going to be some dispute from 10 years ago. You had a divorce, you had something, and you owe a phone company $1,000 from, $2,000. There's a little number on the bottom of it, which is Joe's finance company who bought your debt. He bought it for 50 cents on the dollar, 5 cents on the dollar. We called Joe's finance company. What do you want to pay off Crystal's debt? $100. It's a $1,000 bill. We'll pay you $200. I asked for $100. We'll pay you $200. Why do you want to pay me double? Because I want you to write a letter when you're finished to all the credit bureaus confirming that our debt's been paid. Mm-hmm. That pops your credit another 30 points. Now you have a 70-point pop. Am I wrong?
No, you're not.
70-point pop in the first 6 months. What does that do to somebody's self-esteem? Their well-being. All of a sudden, your shoulders are back. It just changes the energy. And one of the challenges you have in these neighborhoods is negative, depressed
Absolutely.
energy.
Now, this is a question for both of you. How do you explain and define financial literacy and entrepreneurship to a 5-year-old who listens to bullets whiz by at night, who doesn't get much encouragement from the single parent, who also doesn't have books in the home, and who is struggling to read and to feel that they can learn? How do you teach entrepreneurship and financial literacy to that 5-year-old boy?
First, you would have to make sure you're eye to eye with them. I am one of those people. I used to be homeless in my 20s, which was very little ago. It wasn't that long ago, okay? But I used to be homeless. And bullets, sleeping on the floors of abandoned houses, sleeping at friends' houses, no food, no water, no lights, no gas in the house. And there were still leads, there were still things in the community that I can do, but like the chairman says, you have to have some type of self-esteem, some type of hope instilled in you. So the little kid who's standing there in front of me saying, I can be anything I want to be, I would say, yes, you can. You have to get your stuff straight. You have to start now. Start saving your pennies. I walk around in my truck today with little blue piggy banks in the back, with bags of Fed shreds of that money that's shredded up by the Federal Reserve, and I'm in the grocery store buying tuna and giving out Fed shreds to kids. I'm trying to get them motivated. And then through our Booth program, Banking on Our Future, we brought that back to Detroit. It's up and running. We have a great fellow. We teach kids from 4th grade on up through college about money, financial literacy.
You know, I don't know if I'm getting more impatient in my older age or more blunt, but like that was great, that was sweet.
Come on, help me out here, Chairman.
No, you done. That was a great answer.
Right.
It's just, to me, it's like, this is, I can say this because Stevie Wonder's my friend. Stevie Wonder can see this. I mean, he's my friend. I mean, even he'd laugh at that. But the point is, this is so obvious. Like, do you want to be on a freeway where you got a 3,000-pound vehicle or missile that you don't have a driver's license? Nobody has a driver. No one went to driving school. You have an economy, and no one's being taught how to run the economy. We don't have home economics anymore. No one's being taught how to run a classroom, how to raise kids. I mean, everybody's just winging it. Oh, have a kid, wing it. Go in the economy, wing it. So if you want to put a kid to sleep, give him a traditional financial literacy course. Give him a brochure and talk to him about some left brain analytical thing. That's not what we do. You got to get the right side of the brain kick, where that's hope and aspiration and well-being. The thing that made her successful is that she's a dreamer with a shovel in her hands. So in Detroit, we had this program, and every school in Detroit should do this. You need to have financial literacy in that's one thing you should commit to do, is financial literacy citywide within 2 years. Just commit to do it. So young Derek, this literally happened in a Detroit school. Young Derek goes to a financial literacy course and goes through the 3 sessions, starts wearing his only suit to school. The 4th session, starts raising questions, is in there asking questions. He graduates from the class, walking down the hall. Friends who didn't go to the class says, "Hey man, what are you doing hanging around with those people? I mean, what are you doing wearing that suit? Man, you need to come hang out with us." And he says, "Well, I'm good. I want to be successful." He said, "Well, look, you need to be with us. We're cool." So I go to Derek's friends and said, "I want to give you $70 each. Make a decision about your aspirations. You have 3 minutes. Make a decision about Nike. Here's $70. The 2 kids who were with them said, "That's easy. I don't need 3 minutes. I want to buy some Air Jordans." Derek says, "I want to buy 1 share of Nike stock." The kids jump on Derek. "Man, that's stupid. Everybody in school has Jordans. Black Air Jordans, white Air Jordans, fuchsia Air Jordans, purple Air Jordans. Everybody's got Air Jordans. You need to get you some Air Jordans." I go to Derek's defense. Derek says, no. It's cool. I want them to buy those shoes.
That's what it is.
Because when they do, they're making me money. See, Derek may be broke 20 times in his life. He'll never be poor again. Because something clicked in the right side of his brain. The light came on, right? And once the light comes on and somebody takes their life back, they will never be poor again. There's a difference between being broke and being poor.
That's right.
Being broke is economic, but being poor is a disabling frame of mind and a depressed condition of your spirit, and you must vow never to be poor again. When I look at Crystal, I don't see poverty. When I look at you, we just met. I can tell somebody told you they loved you. I can tell you had high self-esteem. See, I don't even know your story. I know your story. You had role models. That's what you got to see when you look in the eyes of the average Detroiter. You got to see hope made real, and then everything else will follow.
To speak to something the chairman just said,
Okay.
As far as, living in poverty and you don't see this and you don't see that, that is what had to happen when you have to make up your mind. So when my clients come in and I talk to them, I tell them you have to, at some point, whether you walk through the door today or next week when we meet, you need to make up in your mind at some point that we are not going back to that 580, to that 520. When I was homeless, I decided to go to school. I didn't have a pot or a window. We get it, right? Mm-hmm. The proverbial pot or window. But I knew if I went to school to learn about money, to be an accountant, I would never be broke again. Didn't know what I was doing, walked in the classroom, my professors laughed at me. I had my first bookkeeping job, they laughed at me. "What are you going to school for? Accounting?" Good luck with that. But, guess what? So There's that.
There's that.
But you have to make up in your mind. There is a clicking, something in your right side of your brain, like the chairman said, that has to turn on for you to say, I am done. I am so done. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go see Coach Crystal at Northwest Activity Center.
That's right.
Nearly 3/4 of the children born in the city of Detroit in 2013 and 2014 were born to single parents, and the majority of those single parents were teenagers under the age of 18, not legal, not even able to get some jobs. There's a huge problem with parenting and trying to get those parents to the place where they're doing what your parent did and what my parent did. How do we fill in that gap so that people understand that you can't hold the children responsible for what their parents did?
So here's what. The chairman recommended that we all take this training, and everything he says to do, I do because he's my boss. Okay. So there's that. So we took this training, and in the training, they were telling us about all these statistics that are coming out about poverty and neighborhoods and the poor. And one of the statistics that rolled across the screen was that 4% of children born into poverty do not make it past the median income in their area. Median income in Detroit is $24,000 to $26,000. Excuse me. Only 4% of the people born in poverty make it past median income. So 96% of the children who are born in this city in poverty don't have a chance, or so we think. So now that model has to change. Now that American dream, oh no, there's no American dream. 96% of people are gonna fail, what are you talking about? No, it has to change. Maybe now it doesn't look like mom going to work at Ford or GM, at Chrysler, which are great jobs. Maybe it looks like mom selling her pies that she bakes every Christmas
so
that
now we're
everybody
talking.
likes.
So I was waiting for you to drop the mic. Okay, so we don't have a lot of time. I mean, look, your 9 to 5 has the financial 5 to 9. We got to start rethinking. Nobody's going to have a job at 30 years anymore. You may have to have 10 jobs in 30 years. In fact, you can't get a job, create a job. Again, you got to start reimagining your future here. Go sell Avon. There's so many ways to make. We have a guy who came to me at one of our Hope Inside locations who was doing some notary, black guy, and looked very humble, wasn't wearing a fancy suit. And I said, oh, you do this as notary, you do this part-time. He said, no, I do it full-time. Oh, you must do okay. I do okay. So I mean being nosy. So how well do you do? Well, I'm okay. Now, how well do you do? $17,000 a month. He makes $17,000 a month as a mobile notary. Now, he's got others contracting with him, a lot of single mothers, because this creates flexible work schedules for them. And by the way, 70% of black households are single-parent households, single female. I think that they need a Nobel Peace Prize because they are really producing, they produce me, first of all, and they're producing every success story you see in the black communities coming from these single-parent households where they are struggling with too much month at the end of their money. They're stressed out. The number one reason why women stay with abusive men is money. So once you get financial literacy, you get a sense of independence, you get your self-esteem back, then you can start being on the offensive game, not the defensive game. Go to Coach Crystal every week, get your finances in order so that you can then have a plan. And then once you do that, from defensive, start talking about offensive, meaning starting a business or creating some kind of a secondary income so that you can have options in your life. And then your kids can see, mom did this, I can do it too. And now you start to change the paradigms. Again, this is not complicated, but we got to make this real. We got to wrestle this thing to the ground. And it has to be hand-to-hand combat hope. This has to be, you cannot subcontract this to the mayor. You cannot subcontract this to anybody. This is your life, and this is your city.
So my last question, because we are close to being out of time.
And I give such short answers.
Oh, that's okay, as long as they're good. I don't care. You have seen and said a lot about Detroit. You know Detroit. Everybody knows Detroit since the bankruptcy. Everybody and their mom has wanted to come and see what's happening. What would be step one out of all the things that you might recommend for the city that will help the children understand entrepreneurship and becoming their own people and their own capital and their own wealth builders? What's the very first thing that Detroit should be doing?
two things, same thing. Path to get a job or create a job. It needs to be in at least 50 Detroit schools. It needs to be within 5 miles travel distance for every kid or family. It needs to be both in school and after school. A track for internship, as I discussed earlier, and a track for entrepreneurship, connecting education to aspiration so that kids want to go to school, have a reason to want to go to school, to engage and be, well, I mean, a lot of kids who don't want to school want to go to football practice. They want to go to basketball. There's some ancillary reason why they're going to school, and then they say, well, in order to do that, you got to get good grades. So this is an opportunity to get to relate to 90% of all kids who understand money and want to be successful. And so you can't give them a lecture on broccoli. You got to give them a reason to want to save their own life. I think if you can do this school by school, or at least neighborhood by neighborhood, you'll see within 18 months a change in the energy and the attitude, which will then change the organization rate for small business and job creation, which will then stabilize the community. And so if there's one thing I'd ask your leaders to do is to organize, basically adopt a school, basically. Adopt a school. You can do it for $25,000 per school per year. Don't do it with us, do it with somebody else. But do something in a neighborhood where you say, I own this, the buck stops here, and track those kids from K through college, and make sure they have a role model. And so and that then connects with, I think, the mayor's vision of increasing domiciled ownership here.
Yes.
Because if people grow up here and they're rooted here, they'll want to live here. And if they become a homeowner, they're less transient than a renter, and then all things change. I think your police officers should own homes in the city. That's community-based policing. We don't have time for this conversation, but I mean, this is, again, there's nothing that we're saying here that's rocket science, right? It's just, you gotta just decide, I'm taking my city back. That's what it is.
Crystal?
First of all, isn't this man so inspirational?
Not at 8 in the morning.
I think we should rename him John Hope Bryant Luther King Jr. That would just
I like my name.
You like your name?
Dr. King has done his thing.
He's done his thing. To speak to what the chairman said earlier about creating a role model, that's what I'm thinking. So while we're working with the children, I'm here for the parents. The children can see their parents, they can see the change in attitude. They can see the way their mom is happy now in the morning because her credit score is going up, because she's paid off Comcast, who she's been owing for 2 years. So while you're working on the kids...
Tell that dude to get out of her house.
Oh my goodness. Tell the dude to get up out of her house. But yeah, so while the kids are being handled here, I'm up here, we're trying to meet them together. I'm working from the back, you're working from the front, and hopefully the kids can see a change in their parents and they want to grow up to be like their parents. Our parents are our first role models. They're the people who we look to. And I always say, if anything, if my mom didn't teach me, rest her soul, anything, she taught me what not to do. Even if she didn't know she was teaching me, she taught me exactly what not to do. She taught me not to drop out of high school. She taught me not to go to college. She taught me not to, in my case, not have a mate, a steady mate, somebody you can trust in and build a foundation for your child and have a safe home. Everything she did, she always told me, are you watching me?
So, Crystal, you're saying role modeling, I'm saying engagement, and I think what we're saying, because we didn't even talk about this when we came out here, we're talking about a vertically integrated system of hope. It's role modeling and engagement, and it's a holistic approach to revitalization. Did I get that right?
Absolutely. I had a client come in with her 2 kids to one of our appointments, and she had a newborn.
Wow.
Sitting at my desk on hold with the student loan debt people, Navient, breastfeeding with 2 children. And she's rocking and she's talking, and we're negotiating her payment down from $400 to $5 a month.
Wow.
And there it is. When you have inspiration, when you have a goal, when you are sick of it, point blank and period, it'll come. All you gotta do is make that first step.
Can I say one?
Yeah, of course.
So yesterday, Ambassador Young, who I love to quote, says, "Coincidence is God's way of staying anonymous." Yesterday, I'm on my way to Detroit, and I get a call from the Skillman Foundation. Tanya Allen's the CEO, and they tell me, and I can't talk about the details yet, but they said that they had enough confidence in this that I could say this today. They're going to not only fund, but sponsor and project manage a youth to adult, but mostly youth-based initiative in Detroit for Operation Hope to bring Detroit Uplift 2020 to Detroit. They're going to put it in their offices and inject it citywide. And so my hope is working with the Detroit Chamber and leaders like you for whom, because everything's local, right?
That's right.
It doesn't matter what the Washington is saying. It's all local. If 100 leaders in here say it won't happen, it's not going to happen. But if conversely you say it will, it will. I'm hoping that working with Skillman and the mayor's office and Detroit Chamber, we can inspire leaders here to make a commitment at whatever level they're comfortable, volunteer, host one kid, I don't really care what it is, to start creating a pulse of economic energy from Skillman Foundation's offices outwards so that we can then create this Uplift 2020 goal and agenda, and then put billboards up in the city to see the needle move. You want to see the credit scores go up. You want to see how many kids are staying in school. You want to see how many kids are starting a business. You want to see how many kids have an internship. And that will change your attitude, not only of so-called poor people, it'll change the attitude about you. You won't be asking Sandy why you're doing this anymore. You'll be thanking them.
Well said, and I think that's enough. I want to thank John and Crystal. Thank you all for being here as a part of this amazing day. And we're going to move to the next session, and I'm going to talk with you guys a little bit more backstage. Thank you.
Thank you all.